Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second part of rearranging equations. Just as your starter, I'd like you to factorize the following 8 questions fully, okay? Remember, that means you're dividing out the highest common factor. I always start with the highest common factor for the numbers, and then for the letters, and then factorize. Okay, so please pause, have a go, and then we'll go through the solutions. Right, welcome back. Let me just get the visualizer set up so that we can go through the solutions together. Okay, turn the light on for you so that you can see. Lovely. Okay, so for question 1, we had 2c squared plus 4cd. Your highest common factor for the numbers is 2, and your highest common factor for the letters is c, and so we get c plus 2d. For question 2, we have 2k squared plus 4km. Okay, for this one, your highest common factor for the numbers is 2. Highest common factor for the letters is k, leaving us with k plus 2m. Okay, so how do I work that out? Remember, we can do 2k squared divided by 2k gives us k, or you can think backwards. 2k times k would give us 2k squared. 2k times 2m would give me 4km. Okay, so either way, it doesn't matter. It's whatever works better in your heads, but that's how we are factorizing. Right, so for question 3, we have 28x squared plus 14xy. Here, our highest common factor is 14 for the number and x for the letter. That leaves us with 2x plus y. Question 4, we have 63u squared minus 36uv. Highest common factor for the numbers is 9, and the highest common factor for the letters is a u, and that leaves us with 7u minus 4v. For question 5, we had 63c squared minus 54cd, okay? Highest common factor for the numbers is 9, highest common factor for the letters is c, so that gives us 7c minus 6d. For question 6, we had 130f squared minus 65fg. Okay, so this is the first one where you may not right away know the highest common factor, but if you double 65, that gives you 130. So actually the highest common factor is 65. So we're going to take out 65 for the number. Okay, and the letter that's in common is the F, so that gives us 2F minus G. All right, and question 7, we had 24W squared plus 45WX. Okay, and that is going to give us highest common factor there is 5, nope. 6, nope. 3, it looks like. Let's try that. So we've got 3, and then don't forget your W as well. 8W plus 15X. Okay, nothing else goes in there because 8 and 15 don't have any common factors other than 1. Okay, so that one's finished. So we take out 3W, we've got 8W, and we've got plus 15X. Moving on to question 8, we have 21G squared minus 7GH. Here, our highest common factor is 7. Our highest common factor for the letters is G, leaving us with 3G minus H. Okay, so hopefully you guys found those all right. Next, I want to go through how we deal with rearranging equations when we might need to factorize. I'm going to walk through this example with you, even though, yes, it's on the left on the screen. It is nicer when we actually talk about examples together. Okay? Right, so in this question, we have this situation. It's told us that A is equal to WH plus LH plus LW. And it would like W to be our subject. Okay, so that's what we want to isolate. there's a slight problem. It's not a problem, but we've got to deal with it, okay? We've got two expressions with W's. Yeah, and it's not so easy just to isolate them right away as a result, and so we have a method to do this. First of all, I want to get all the expressions with a W in them on one side of this equation, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is take away the LH from both sides, because remember, we have to do the same to both sides, okay? So that is going to give me A minus LH is equal to WH plus, I'm going to rewrite this as WL, okay? Because what I now need to do is isolate the W. And I won't be able to do that until I factorize this side, okay? So we are going to factorize now. So that's kind of our next step. And that's why we were focusing on factorizing in the starter, okay? So we have A minus LH. This stays the same at the moment. And here, what's in common is the W, so I can take that out, and I'm left with H plus L. Now, hopefully we can see that this means W multiplied by the H plus L. Remember, there's an invisible time sign there. So the opposite of multiplying is to divide. So now I can divide both sides by H plus L. Okay, and the reason I suggest once again that you use a fraction for your division is that this is already now set up and correct. Okay, so we just need to rewrite this out with those canceled out, and I'm going to put the W out in front. So W is equal to A minus LH over H plus L. Okay, so once again, when we have two or more expressions with the variable we need to isolate, we need to use factorizing in order to do this. Then at that stage, we would divide the other part out, move it over to the other side in effect, okay? And that will give us our subject that we wanted, in this case, W. So well done. You might want to take a moment and pause the video and make sure you process that and copy that down, okay? All right, guys, I would like you to now try these two questions, okay? The first one, you need to make Y the subject, the second one D, okay? So you need to pause, try those, and then I will go through the answers with you. So pause the video now, please. Okay, thanks for trying those. Let's go through the answers together. Okay, so for question 7, we had H is equal to 3Y plus XY, and they want Y to be the subject. So already it's set up properly for me. I don't need to worry about subtracting anything because I only have expressions with Y on the right. So here we're going to factor out the Y. Okay, so H would be equal to Y and then 3 plus X when we divide out the Y. Now we divide by my 3 plus X on both sides. Okay, we can see that those cancel out. And I'm just going to write it Y equals this, okay, so it's in the correct order. Y is equal to H over 3 plus X. Some people would prefer to write Y is equal to H over X plus 3, but it's not going to make a difference to your marks, okay? But there is our final answer for that one. If we now look at question 8, okay, we had H is equal to AD minus AC minus BD, and we need to make D the subject. Okay, before we do this, I just want to remind you that that's a capital H, okay? So in algebra, it's really, really important that you stick to what they give you. Do not write that as a lowercase h because then you're technically wrong. Okay, so you stick to the cases that they give you, uppercase or lowercase. Right, so we want D to be the subject. We need only the expressions with D on the right-hand side. This negative AC does not have a D in it, so we're going to add AC to both sides, giving us H plus AC is equal to AD minus BD. Now I can factor out the D. So that is going to be H plus AC is equal to D brackets a minus b. Finally, we can divide by the a minus b on both sides. Okay, that will cancel out, leaving us with d is equal to h plus ac all over a minus b. Okay, so well done, guys. Hopefully those are okay now. Right, so you're now going to do some application questions for me. Okay, I'm going to need you to pause the video. I'm going to make it full screen for you so that it's easier to see, okay, when you do them. All right, so please can you pause the video now? Just make sure you use the hint for question 11 because that will help you, okay? So press pause now. Okay, guys, well done. Let's just pull up our visualizer again. Just a moment. Split screen that for you. Okay, so let's go through those together. Right, so for question 9, it says 5xy plus 2 is equal to w plus 3xy. And it says two things, make y the subject and then make x the subject. So let's start with part A, where we are making y the subject. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite out what we had. Right, so, so we want, in this case, y to be the subject first. Let me put that in brackets so we don't forget. That's a good idea, by the way, because especially if you've got two parts to the question, you want to make sure you remember what you're isolating, so you can stick it in a bracket in the margin so that you can remind yourself, okay? Right, so I need all the y's together. Yes, so in this particular question, that means I'm going to have to take away 3xy so that it goes to the left-hand side. So we take away 3xy, both sides. Okay, that will give us a positive 2xy on this side, plus 2 is equal to just w, because remember that cancels out. Okay, now at this stage, I want this to be by itself, the 2xy, so that I can isolate y. So let's subtract the 2 from both sides. And that will give me 2xy is equal to w minus 2. Now, to get y by itself, I can divide by 2x because this means 2x times y. So we divide by 2x on both sides. And that gives us, when those cancel out, y is equal to w minus 2 all over 2x. And that is finished. Okay? So, for part B, let's write it out again. We've got 5xy plus 2 is equal to w plus 3xy. This time, okay, they want us to isolate x. All right, and while I'm doing this, I might want to think about the discussion question. It says, what do you notice about your answer? So when I get to this answer, and maybe during the method, I might start to see some similarities, okay? So first thing, I still need to get the xy terms together because they contain the x. So that's the same as what we just did. So 3xy minus 3xy there as well leaves us with 2xy plus 2 equals w. Right. Well, it looks to me like the next step's also the same. Subtract 2, so we get 2xy equals w minus 2. So really the only difference we see is here now, where we have to divide, because we want the x, by 2y instead of by 2x. Okay? Leaving us, that cancels, with x is equal to w minus 2 over 2y. All right, so in terms of why those methods were virtually the same, well, that's because 2xy was multiplied together, okay, and that expression contained both the x and the y, and those were the two things we were isolating in those questions. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense as to why that method was very similar, and in fact the same, only difference was when we got to the end when we actually isolated the x or the y. Okay? Right, that brings us to question 10. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Right, so question 10 tells us that h is equal to xy plus 2x plus 7. Okay, and it says Zoe rearranges the formula to make x the subject. And her answer is h minus 7 minus xy over 2, okay, is equal to x. Right, well, before I even go any further with answering these questions, we should be able to notice that x is in two places. And if x is in two places, it's not the subject because it hasn't been isolated properly. Okay, so for part A, they say, explain why this cannot be the correct answer. Well, I think we've just discussed that. X is on both sides of the equation, so is not the subject. And in brackets, we can put has not been isolated. Okay, so once again, x is on both sides of the equation, so is not the subject and has not been isolated. Okay, so that sorts out part A. It then moves on to say, what mistake has Zoe made? Well, I think the best thing to do to figure that out would be to start to think about how you would answer it, okay? And what did she forget to do? Well, she forgot to factor out the x, yes? So we could explain that in words as well. The x was in two expressions. Okay, you could be specific. And that was, let's look at those two expressions. It was in xy plus 2x. So she should have factored out the x in order to make it the subject. E.g., xy plus 2x is equal to x times y plus 2. Okay, so that explains it to your examiner really well. Okay, so let me just repeat that for you. The x was in two expressions, xy plus 2x. She should have factored out the x in order to make it the subject. xy plus 2x would have been equal to x and then brackets y plus 2. Okay, so that is important to explain. Right, now let's actually work out the correct answer, which is part C. Okay, so we've got h is equal to xy plus 2x plus 7. Okay. First things first, we want only the expressions with x to be on the right, so let's take away the 7. Okay, that wasn't one of her mistakes because she did take away the 7. All right, so we've got h minus 7 equals xy plus 2x. Here's where she made her mistake. Okay, she should have then done h minus 7 is equal to x brackets y plus 2. And she then should have divided by y plus 2. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, and those cancel out, and that gives us x is equal to h minus 7 over y plus 2. Okay, so that's part C finished. Right, we then move on to question 11. Okay, and in question 11, it says make x the subject of this formula. So let's take a look. Now, we did a similar one like this last lesson, okay, where we first had to deal with a denominator, and the way we do that is to multiply out the denominator. It doesn't matter that it involves what we're looking at, x, we still have to multiply it out. Okay, so that gives us Vx is equal to 1 plus 7x. Now we can get the x's together. Okay, so in order to do that, the easiest way is to take away 7x from both sides. And that will give us bx minus 7x is equal to 1. Okay, now we are able to divide out that x and factor it. So let's see, x brackets b minus 7 is equal to 1, which will mean when we divide by my v minus 7, we will get x as the subject. So x is 1 over v minus 7. Okay, final answer. Lovely. You have one more task for me today, okay? And that is to complete an exam question. All right, so just make that full screen so you can see it really clearly. Okay. Please pause the screen and then have a go. You can see it's 4 marks, so worth quite a bit, so let's try our best. Okay, I'll give you a small hint. I'd multiply out the denominator, then go from there. All right, pause the screen. Okay, guys, well done. Let's take a look at how we solve this one. Okay, let's make that a bit bigger for you, otherwise you won't be able to see what I'm writing. Right, here we go. So in our question, we have t is equal to k over k minus 2, all right? And we are meant to make k the subject. I can tell I'm going to have to factorize at some point because it's in 2 places, but before I do any of that, I need to rearrange this a little bit. So we are going to multiply both sides by k minus 2. Now I've put it in a bracket because that way I keep track of it, and I also know that on the left I'm going to have to expand, and it also helps me see that these two will cancel out, okay? So we end up with t times the k minus 2, which I'm going to write like that, is equal to k. Why? Because those canceled out. Lovely. Right, so now I can actually expand. So, well, actually, you don't have to expand. A lot of us like to expand, and I think in this case we should, because we're going to have to bring that k together with it, okay? So kt, I'm going to write it like that so that the subject that I'm going to be isolating comes first, minus 2t is equal to k. By expanding, this is now allowing you to bring these k's together. How you do that is up to you, but I don't particularly like working with negatives because later on we'll have to cancel them out. So we're going to do this in 2 steps. We're going to add the 2t first to both sides, giving us kt is equal to k plus 2t. And then at that stage, we can take away the k from both sides to get the k's together. All right, so we get kt minus k is equal to 2t. Now we can factorize. K times t minus 1 is equal to 2t. And final step is to divide by the t minus 1, all right, which will give us k is equal to 2t over t minus 1. Final answer. Okay, I think you guys did really well today. Now that you've done this lesson, you can go back, review it, and then I need you to complete the quiz, which has also been assigned. Okay, and that is all due Monday. All right, so good work, and looking forward to the next lesson. Take care.